Hi, my name's Amy Horroyd and I'm a course tutor here at Betty's Cookery School in Harrogate. So the first thing we're going to make is a sweet pastry base. In my bowl here I have some plain flour. So I've diced my butter up into small pieces so it's easier to rub in. So I'm just rubbing the butter using my fingertips into the flour until it resembles crumbs. And then once it's reached that crumb stage, as you can see, I'm now going to stir in the sugar. Just make sure the sugar is evenly distributed throughout the mixture. And then I'm now going to add my egg. It's a medium-sized egg, which I've beaten. I'm just using my table knife now to mix in my egg like so, and then I'm going to use my hands to bring the pastry dough together. And you're really looking for a nice, soft, silky pastry. You don't want it too wet or else you run the risk of the pastry shrinking when you come to blind baking, but you also don't want your mixture too dry or else you'll find it difficult to roll out and your pastry will crack. So now it's come to a ball, I'm now going to wrap it in cling film and then put it in the fridge to chill for about 20 minutes. So the next stage is to line a baking sheet with baking paper, and I have my 15 centimetre baking ring at the ready. I'm now going to line my ring with a pastry which has rested now for about 30 minutes in the fridge. So I'm going to use a light dusting of flour on the workbench and flour my rolling pin. And just roll the pastry, giving it a quarter turn just to keep the shape and also stop the pastry from sticking to the workbench. It's important at this stage that you don't use too much flour because you don't want to dry out your pastry. I'm looking for about 5mm, half a centimetre thickness to line my baking ring. I'm now going to place it into the baking ring and just using my fingers just to ease the pastry into the edges of the ring like so, and then using the tips of my fingers just pressing the pastry against the edges. I'm just going to roll off the excess using a rolling pin. And then I'm going to let that chill for another 20 to 30 minutes before I blind bake it. Okay, so the pastry has been chilling for about 20 minutes in the fridge now. So I'm going to add the baking beans into the pastry case using some greaseproof paper, which I'm just going to crunch up to help mould itself into the case. You want enough baking beans to help support the sides of the pastry case and also the base to stop it from puffing up. But you don't want to overfill your pastry case or else your pastry just will not cook. So my pastry is now ready to be blind baked. I'm going to put it in the oven, which has been preheated to 160 degrees for about 10 minutes. And I'm looking for the sides of the pastry to cook first, and then I'm going to remove the ceramic baking beans from the pastry case and put it back in the oven just for 5 minutes to cook off the base of that pastry before I move on to the filling. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to making the passion fruit filling. First of all, I'm going to soak my gelatin leaf in some cold water. This should take just a few minutes. And while that's soaking in the cold water, I'm going to go on to making the filling. So in a saucepan on a moderate heat, I'm going to melt my butter and add my caster sugar and also my passion fruit purée, and use the juice of 2 fresh passion fruits, and you should get a nice flavour and a nice colour from that. So it's really important at this stage that you melt the butter on a moderate heat. You don't want that sugar to burn. Okay, so the butter has now melted. I'm now going to add my beaten egg into the mix. I'm just going to turn that heat up and bring the mixture up to the boil just to cook that egg out for a minute or so. I'm constantly stirring at this stage. I'm now going to add my gelatin leaf. I'm just going to squeeze out that excess water and then add to the passion fruit mixture and stir until all the gelatin has dissolved. The gelatin helps to set the mixture. Just to make sure that the passion fruit filling is nice and smooth, I'm going to sieve it just to get rid of any eggy threads. I'm now ready to fill my baked ring, tart ring. Okay, so I'm now going to check on my pastry case. It's had about 10 to 12 minutes in the oven, and I'm looking to see if the sides have cooked through and lost that raw tinge and have gone slightly sandy coloured. I'm going to remove the ceramic baking beans now and put the pastry back into the oven for about 5 minutes just to cook the base of the pastry case. Okay, so I'm going to half fill my pastry case with a passion fruit filling, just halfway up, because I'm going to add the chocolate ganache at a later stage once this filling has set in the fridge, which will probably take about half an hour or so. So this is now going to go into the fridge to chill and to set. Okay, so in a bowl I have my milk and chocolate colettes to make the chocolate ganache. I've got my whipping cream coming up to the boil on the moderate heat. I've got some milk chocolate and dark chocolate colettes. So I'm now going to pour in my whipping cream into my chocolate and just gently stir the chocolate colettes until it melts into a nice smooth chocolate ganache. This will take a few minutes, but the key is to make sure that all the chocolate colettes have melted and you've got a nice glossy, silky chocolate ganache ready to pour into your tart ring. So I've been stirring my chocolate ganache now for a few minutes and all my colettes have melted. It's become a nice glossy filling. Before I pour my chocolate ganache onto the tart, I'm just going to remove the ring, like so. That should come off very easily. And I'm going to pour my chocolate ganache onto the set passion fruit mix, like so. And I'm going to allow that chocolate ganache to set and pop it in the fridge. It'll probably take about half an hour or so. The chocolate ganache is now set, so it's ready to be served. So what I've done is I've got some warm water into a measuring jug and just warm my knife through. It just makes sure that you've got a nice clean cut when you take a slice from the tart. So I'm going to take a slice from the tart. I'm going to clean my knife each time I make a cut. Okay, so you've got a lovely contrast of colours with the passion fruit filling and the chocolate ganache. I'm just going to sprinkle the top of the tart with some cocoa powder. It just adds a little bit of texture to the top of the tart. I'm going to place the tart onto a serving plate. And I've just made a passion fruit coulis as a garnish. And just to finish off the dish, I've got some chocolate curls. And that is your chocolate and passion fruit tart.